action figure heads are going to be rolling after he enters the toy shelf. Hello toy fans, I'm here with another one of our action figure openings. Now of course this has been around for a while. Everyone's looked at Masterverse. I initially had pushed away from getting anything in Masterverse until I saw the Battle Armor He Man. Now the Battle Armor He Man's a newer one that's come out. It's kind of a Target exclusive. I have not come across it yet in stores. However, I saw a bunch of pictures of it and I was like, that is an absolute good looking figure. And I was like, I really do need to look at the other figures within the Masterverse and see what we have. And lo and behold, I came across basically what is known as the concept art He-Man, Mark Taylor He-Man. It's got the helmet of the He-Man prototype that was built, the big bulky looking body one. And I saw this new Eternia He Man. I said, you know what? This might be that first step into going and looking at He Man. I don't need a Revelations He Man. I don't need another. But this one, I would prefer to have in my collection. I have Viking, I have He Man from the classic series. And I happen to like them, but I really dig the look of this particular He Man. And also the look of the kind of King He Man or the Battle Armor He Man that's got the bearded He Man with the scar. So with this one, I said, I gotta pick it up. And it was on Amazon for really cheap. And right now they are going for basically half the shelf price. So it's definitely worth looking into if you're interested in, of course, Masters of the Universe. Now, all the Masterverse stuff comes in this sort of box. And this was the first wave that came out outside of the Revelations run of line. So the first wave of all the figures of the Masterverse are Revelations, and then this started to break away and give us something different. I think this is where fans started to really rejoice and become happy about what they were getting with the Masterverse. Now he does come in this nice window box, and it is one of those boxes that is resealable. You can put He-Man and all of his accessories back in, with the exception of the axe. The axe doesn't actually grip to anything. Instead, it's held in by a little wiry peg. So if you do take it all out, play with it, and put it back in, you'll probably be putting that axe in his hand. You notice he does come with two heads. You've got this fancy sculpt here of the head here without the helmet, and one head with the helmet. There's a part of me that would kind of prefer to have a helmet that slips on and off, but that would have oversized the helmet, made it look really bulky, and so this is a really nice draw. I just don't necessarily always like having extra parts. We also get some extra hands here. One that looks like a shield hand, the kind of classic He-Man, and one that's a grip hand. I notice he's got a punching hand over here and a grip hand here. I have a feeling I'll probably just be using the two grip hands. It also comes with its power sword, and the power sword looks really nice in package. I even love the wrap down here. And then we've got this dagger that is a boot dagger that comes from the concept art that Mark Taylor had put out. This time we're getting it in action figure form, which is nice. Now, other than that, for the front of the box, if you go to the side, you get some really nice artwork on the side of the box where you get the new Eternia He Man here. You get a picture of the face. That's a very beautiful painting. It is one thing to note. This one shows the shield here. We actually do not get a shield with this particular He Man. On the back here, of course, we got the new Eternia He Man, original designs inspired by classic concepts. I love the fact that we're finally going back and getting this very classic action figure axe that we had from the original toys. And it had a very distinct look, and I'm loving that we're getting, of course, the grip back and all the little details that we had from the original He Man run. The painting here looks very nice, and it's very reminiscent of the Frazetta style paintings, with the exception that it's a little more illustrated versus kind of the smoothed out oil. This feels more like William George or Rudy Obrero versus Earl Rim that had a smoother style. This feels a little more set for like the toy packaging, which looks good. We get some cross art down here where you have He-Man, Teela, Skeletor, Merman. I do like that Skeletor, that it's a new Eternia Skeletor, and that's definitely one that I might look out for down the road. Now, He-Man over here, it says He-Man, most powerful man in the universe. The most powerful man in the universe explores the world of Eternia, seeking to stop the sinister Skeletor from forging the scimitar of chaos. He can feel the twilight of the world coming. He can feel it in his bones. He must find the megalomaniacal... Ooh, that's a hard word for me. The madman, and put an end to his havoc once and for all. The fate of the universe depends on it. So, pretty cool. It's got an interesting story, and it's not like the normal He Man story. This is a new Eternia. You get He Man, the most powerful man in the universe. And then we're going back to the front of the window box. Now, that is He Man and the packaging. There's really nothing else to say about it. I love the fact that it does have a resealable package, and this is definitely one of those packages I'm not going to throw away. I'm going to keep. I like that these, as collector pieces, are coming in the boxes, so if the collector wants to put it back in package at some point, they have that option, and that's a very nice thing, and something that in the past has been overlooked, like with the giant size figures and some of the figures that we got where you had to break off the card or break it out of package and it wasn't reusable, and that part kind of upset a lot of fans. So that's all I can say about the packaging. We need to get this one out and get to battling. And of course, outside of packaging is our new Eternia He Man from the Masterverse series, and I have to admit, he looks amazing. I really dig the look of this figure. The shoulder pads, I think originally when I looked at them, I thought they were just a little too large, but I've kind of grown to like this quite a bit. Now, at this point, I've already had this figure out. I've actually been checking him out, playing with him, and there's some really cool stuff about him. So, things that he comes with. Let's kind of break down and show all the stuff that he actually comes with weapon-wise. So he actually has the power sword, and one of the things I like about this power sword is it feels more like the original cut of the sword, and has more of that kind of filmation style. It looks beefier and broader than the Revelation sword that came with that He-Man. I didn't pick up that He-Man because I actually didn't like him. I thought he was just a little too weird, and the sword itself for that He-Man was also very weird. There's very subtle things like a swirl and wrapping up in the top of these crossguard pieces here. And then, of course, for the rain guard, you've got this full diamond effect coming up and onto the blade. The pommel has a little bit of an edge to it, which is nice, and the grip is actually wrapped. So you've got sculpting here that shows it looks like it's wrapped in some sort of like hide or leather. There's a bit of a metal sheen to it, so it's kind of got it's almost like a glittery style metal sheen, and it looks incredible. I really dig this one a lot. Now he also comes with a boot knife, and this was something that I know the Origins, I think 40th anniversary action figure came with the boot knife as well, but it kind of pays homage back to Mark Taylor's original designs, where He-Man had a boot knife in his boot that was like that you could remove and throw, and it kind of like Conan. Conan has, I think, a boot knife as well. I know in the comics, and I'm pretty sure I think in the first movie he does. And it's again with that kind of metallic. You've got that silvering metal here, and then you've got a nice paint app here that reflects the gold, and it's kind of like the gold of his armor here, but again it's a little bit darker because it's a paint application this time. Lastly, for weapons, you get his battle axe, and this is probably, when I initially had my He-Man back when I was a kid, the battle axe was probably one of my favorite pieces. And one of the things I liked about the battle axe from the vintage toy is it had a whole lined grip. So the grip on the vintage toy was, I guess, more like this, where it was kind of like lines that went across. This time we're getting it as lines going across, but this is actually sculpted as a wrap. Now there's all these dings and pieces on here which look really good, and when you get down here for the grip, you've got that sculpted wrap, but there's no paint application on it. This is one of those areas where I'd have liked to see the return of, I guess, the paint app for this. Also on here as well, to make this feel like they're, related to the same action figure. So I'm a little bummed that we didn't get that on this particular axe. Now with that, you also have, of course, an interchangeable head. And his head is easy to pop off and change out. We'll put his non-helmeted head on there. There we go. And it's okay. I'm not too keen on this part over here, but I do like overall the strength in the face. I think it looks really good. You also have these interchangeable hands. So pops out. Let's put that fist hand in here. This one pops out, and then you can have a grip hand. I know a lot of people are doing, grip hands on both hands. One thing that you can keep in mind is that this armor piece here is removable off of that arm. So if you want to put that on another He Man that has that ability, you can. So let's pop that hand in. Let's take this hand out, and we'll put this hand in. Something else I noticed, this piece right here, the wrist gauntlet, it does come off, I believe, maybe. Or maybe not. Yeah, I was going to say, at this point, if it was going to come off, I think it would have popped off, and it does not. That knife does sit into a boot holster here, which is pretty cool, and there's a little bit of sculpting in the boot that allows for that cross guard to go into the fur. And then of course the armor is not removable. However, there is a trick up here where you could take this and you can remove these pieces here, and I'll just try to kind of tighten these down. These stick quite a bit trying to go back in from what I've noticed, and it does make the his cordite armor here a little bit looser when you take the pads off. I think on this one I have to kind of pry it up. Yeah, because I know this tab over here is very strong and doesn't want to pull up. And then we'll pop that back down if we can. There we go. And so if you want more of a classic style He Man, but done in the new color set, yeah, I mean, personally, I think that looks great. The one thing we didn't get in this that I would have really liked to see was that shield. I think a shield would have been really good. And there's a part of me that would kind of like to have had maybe the helm as a piece that can fit onto one head, and maybe have it where the hair is removable and then you put the helmet on with the hair underneath instead of popping a head on and off. And so that way, if I wanted to display it with the helmet in his hand, I could do it without having, a face in there. But for what we're getting with the helmeted head and then of course his normal sandy blonde hair, this is a good look for him. Unlike the fur, we got more kind of a hide this time that's hanging on his loincloth. And again, it looks cool. I love the detail work here with the silver and the brown for his cordite armor. And it looks nice. And of course with him with the sword, one thing that we didn't get with this hand, unlike the 40th anniversary He Man where his sword would rock this way, this time it just rocks back and forth. But yeah, that's a pretty good looking action figure. I dig this one quite a bit. And for me personally, I was actually not going to get any of the Masterverse figures. I had kind of decided that I was going to, push past it. I wasn't going to buy them. And, I kind of had stopped collecting He Man at this point. And so, when I happened to come across this particular He Man, I decided, you know what? I kind of want to take that break and really check and see, how they are. Because they're, I invested so much money in classics that it felt kind of weird to have a repetitive figure again. And I have both Viking and the classic style He Man and the classics version toys. Masterverse just felt kind of like another, kind of buyout or just a way to get my money. And then I saw, of course, the Battle Armor He Man, the new Eternia Battle Armor He Man. I said, I've got to get that one. And that this one came up on sale on Amazon for mine. I think I picked up for about $12 as some sort of like sprint sale. So I'm really glad that I did, because so far I have enjoyed this figure immensely. The joints on it are actually fairly tight. All the parts snap in and fit really, really well. I think my problems that I have is I'd like to see the paint application on the axe handle, and maybe something a little bit different with the helmet and hair situation in order to have, I guess, an easier way to display the helmet maybe in his hand, so if he wanted to carry his helmet, he could. I think it would also have been nice if we'd have had, the two different helmet, or the helmet and the hair separate from the head. We could have had a different emote head. We could have had this normal head, and we could have had one that had more of a snarl on it where he's showing his teeth. That's a little more intimidating. I think that would have given us a lot more chances to photograph things. I also kind of wish that he would have had the shield. I'd have liked to have seen the shield, because the original Mark Taylor pictures and drawings of this type of He-Man also had a shield. Now, I know a lot of people have been kind of complaining about the helmet, because it's not, like the kind of nose cross guard sort of helmet that was originally done in the pictures. But the helmet is basically a nice callback to the big bulky figure that was made for show. And that bulky figure was all one solid piece, and he had that helmet sculpted on top of his head. And the helmet is a direct representation of that figure that went out to the toy fair back in the 80s in order to sell off He-Man to potential investors. Now, that's all I got to say about the new Eternia He Man, or I guess you could say like Viking He Man or Viking style He Man, but it's a new Eternia He Man. I really dig this figure a lot, and I think it's definitely, if you're a He Man fan, it's worth having in your collection. It's a good look, it's an awesome figure, and it's one of those that if you've been passing on the Masterverse and you don't want to get them all, this one I think would definitely be one that you want to get, because it does feel overall worthwhile to have, and it's a little something new that you wouldn't normally have on your shelf. Now, that's all I got to say about the new Eternia He Man. Remember, they're not dolls. In this case, they're big, beefy, shoulder-padded, horn-helmed action figures. When I'm not recording videos here on YouTube, I'm actually over on a podcast on marvindogmedia.com called Talking Toys with Taylor and Jeff. It's a really cool toy podcast. Be sure to check it out. Also, I need your help getting my YouTube channel to grow. Be sure to subscribe down below with that big red button. Hit that bell for notifications so you can be alerted of anything that comes from me to you. Like this video, it helps YouTube know that you like what I'm making, and comment down below. I like chatting with you all.